I'm gonna read the article and then according to the title y'all kind of saw, and now you see the article on screen, and then we'll go straight into my commentary after I read it. Hopefully the Daily Mail doesn't drop the ball and make the page disappear before I can link the author, because I'll leave it up to you whether you'll go look this up. There is a certain YouTuber that talked about Texas, I won't say her name, and about people just picking up and moving to Texas. And all this stuff is talked about all the time online. So, without further ado, Texas, Indiana, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Arkansas rate worst states to live. Alabama don't surprise me. Vermont, Maine, New Jersey. Jersey got a lot of millionaires, I heard. Minnesota and Washington, where I am now, lead the table. I'll get into Washington State after this, and as well as Alabama. So I went from apparently the worst to the best. So here's the article. Americans are moving there in droves, but this big southern U.S. state has nevertheless ranked as America's worst place to live. In its annual scorecard, CNBC rates Texas as having the poorest quality of life in the U.S. The Lone Star State gets that ignominious title due to its lack of doctors and because so many residents are broke and struggle to pay their medical bills, the outlet says. The trouble is, Americans who plan to relocate do not appear to have gotten the memo. People are flocking to Texas. Its population exploded by 473,453 people in the year to July 2023. Those who set up home in Frisco, Rockwell, Dallas, Fort Worth, and other fast-growing Texas cities are quickly encountering some serious livability issues, warned CNBC. The state has among the fewest doctors and nurses per 100,000 people, says the United Health Foundation. Those who are lucky enough to snag an appointment may struggle to pay for it. Texas has more residents without health insurance than anywhere else. Yikes. Nearly a fifth of Texans have racked up medical bills that get passed on to collection agencies, credit reports show. The state of some 30 million people has famously low taxes and is a good place to launch business. But residents should also plan for fewer worker protections, the report warns. Texans who get laid off can only expect unemployment benefits to cover a tenth of their living cost, Oxfam America says. To make matters worse, Texas lawmakers have passed a barrage of laws that make life tougher for LGBTQ plus residents, researchers say. There are also restrictions on access to abortions that can leave many women needing to travel across state lines for terminations, they add. Texas scored poorly, but other states were not far behind. Indiana, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Arkansas rounded out the bottom five. The annual scorecard measured crime, health care, air quality, child care, worker protections, and access to abortions. Poor conservative southern states have historically fared badly when measured in this way. Still, Texas is not alone in welcoming newcomers. The South accounted for 80% of the nation's growth in 2023, the Census Bureau says. Indiana was held back by its eye-watering child care costs, which eat up 13% of a typical household income. The Hoosier State only has 772 licensed child care centers to serve 6.8 million people. Those mulling a move to Alabama might want to plan on taking a wage cut, researchers said. Well, I'm going to get into that one, y'all. Oxfam America says the state minimum wage of $7.25 per hour covers less than a fifth of the living cost for a family of four. Ooh, I can't wait. Oklahoma, meanwhile, languishes with a raft of social and health problems, among the highest rates of obesity and the lowest rates of physical exercise in the nation. Arkansas lags behind the rest of America thanks to its law and order problem, with the second highest violent crime rate after New Mexico. At the other end of the scale, researchers ranked Vermont as the best state to make a home and raise a family. That's kind of not shocking. At the other end of the scale, researchers ranked Vermont as the best state. Well, I just said that. The Green Mountain State has low crime rates, child care is plentiful, and it has the freshest air of any state in the region, says the report. Maine, New Jersey, Minnesota, and Washington round out the top 5. They told no lies about Alabama, because Alabama, I'm going to say this, and please don't get mad at me. I'm a Crimson Tide fan. That's my birth state. I root for Bama, though I live in the state of Washington. Because they brought up that minimum wage. Okay, let me make another disclaimer before I get to Alabama. This was CNBC. So let's be honest. CNBC pushes a liberal agenda, right? But what did they say? A broken record can be right once or something like that? Y'all can tell me what the phrase actually is. I don't care. Here's the thing. Take this all for a grain of salt, okay? Some people who live in these states see nothing wrong with living the way that they live. Some people feel stuck. There is a YouTuber that's been talking about Texas. I'll get back to Alabama. I know I'm in loop-de-loop, and then I massacred that darn article. There's a YouTuber, I won't say her name, very successful businesswoman, that have been saying this about Texas, how people move there. And because that had become the bandwagon to jump on, people underestimated what they've gotten themselves into. See, the thing about Texas is, when they had that big freeze that unalived some people, was that a couple of years ago? That didn't tell you how bad their infrastructure was, and now you got the heat wave there with power outages, I believe, and they can't handle that either. And it's either because you poor and you live in certain neighborhoods and can't afford it, which is unfortunate, or because you just did not estimate a move to Texas correctly. Texas just became the bandwagon people jumped on and didn't think about it. Or your job moved there and then laid certain people off, and you found out it wasn't rose-colored glasses. As soon as they had that freeze a short time ago that unalived people, I knew Texas had a problem. Unless you got some money right now, you got to be careful. Now, I'm going to tell you this. If you like beef barbecue, because I served in the Navy years ago with a Texan that gave me a leftover steak. That steak was good as leftovers. Imagine the next day, because he couldn't find me, because he had a barbecue the previous day. Imagine if I had it fresh. You can't beat their brisket. Barbecue wise, I'm going to say this even as an Alabama, Texas got the best barbecue in this here United States. Y'all can dislike me, and I ain't sorry I said it. Now, I'm going on this list because I'm also get to Alabama, then Oklahoma. They ain't never lied about that minimum wage. Alabama, to me, and again, I'm a Crimson Tide diehard fan, right? Far as a couple of years ago, because I don't watch much football now. I quit keeping up with it, but I still rock the gear. Myself and another person from Alabama, I won't say the person's name, we were both in the Navy. I made the mistake of finding out that in Washington State, where I live now, when I got here, shortly after I got here in 2005, because at the time we came as the Stennis to replace the Carl Vinson. To give you a good idea, the John C. Stennis and the Carl Vinson are aircraft carriers, okay? If you don't really keep up with that type of stuff. So, what happened was, the state of Alabama kept taking taxes. Because the way they treat you once you join the military, they automatically treated me as a single woman that was like middle class, and they were taking a lot of my check every year. I always owed them money. I'm like, what? Why is it that every time I do taxes for y'all, I owe y'all? And to boot, Washington's more expensive. And I had lived in California when they were fleecing me too. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm living in these more expensive states still paying y'all. I found out, number one, Washington has no state tax. Number two, at the time, if you were active duty, I don't know if this since changed, all you had to do is be living in the state of Washington for 1 year and you can change your residency. And I'll be darned in 2006 if I didn't do it. As expensive as this state is, right? And I'll get to Washington in a minute. I don't regret my decision. Right now, let me stay on Alabama. That's $7.25. And I had a conversation with a close relative about this a week or two ago. I won't say who. I personally feel that Alabama is a state that goes out of its way to keep its residents poor on purpose. Take that however y'all want to. Because I've come across several Alabamans. I know one that I'm subscribed to. His channel is rocking it. And he does his side hustles and his normal job when he can. He's rocking it. Most people living in that state either born and raised there or they live there and considering leaving. It's feast or famine. Say what you want to. I felt like, and I still feel that that state goes out of its way to purposely keep people broke. And they'll go out of their way just to pay you that $7.25 minimum wage, even though they know, for example, where I grew up in the general area in Morgan and Lawrence County, that, well, at least not Lawrence County yet, but Morgan County spreading up to Colbert County. If you live in North Alabama, you know what I'm talking about, because we're very north near Nashville and like 3 hours from Atlanta. You know, Huntsville, Alabama, there's a U.S. Space and Rocket Center. And there's growth on the Redstone Arsenal. So now for the first time, where one of my closest relatives live in Hartselle, Alabama, housing and stuff is getting too expensive. And this person's fortunate because her house is paid off. But because Hartselle is more cheaper than Huntsville, now people are willing to make that commute and they're making Hartselle expensive. And I was mad because when I initially thought about moving back in 2022, that's a long story. We're not going to go into that. I was going to live in Hartselle. And you got all these different type of people talking about how Hartselle's wonderful and diverse. I ain't going to go into that. There's still elements of Hartselle that I like and elements about its past I got issues with having grown up in that general area, okay? Everywhere I look up, even in Colbert County, when I looked up near Layton, which is a fairly small place, and like Muscle Shoals, there's apartment rents out there now that rival what we got in Washington State. I never thought I'd live to see the day. The devil is a lie. When I sat there and looked at that, ain't no way I'd pay that. Because the jobs on the arsenal are making it possible for outsiders to pay that, they've lost sight of the fact that people who are actually from there can't afford on a minimum wage of $7.25 an hour to live. Alabama does this on purpose. I'm convinced of that. And again, that's my home state. I don't regret it. I rock it. We got some good food. We got some laid back people. The ideal of sitting on your porch with your sweet tea and you know what I'm saying? And everybody saying, hey, y'all, how you doing? I miss home. But Alabama go out of his way to keep people poor on purpose. That's just my observation. And that's going to make some people mad. But that's why sometimes when Alabama's a punchline, I got to where I don't even take it personal anymore. Because I know that, especially financial and economically, I know it's true. All right, let's go on to Oklahoma. See, Oklahoma scares me because a lot of that white supremacy is starting to rise in that state. They just found a mass grave. They went up to some woman's home and found a and told her, ma'am, and I think it was the FBI asked to dig because they suspected that white supremacists that she sold the house to had a mass grave and may have unalived a lot of people. She was like, okay, no problem. Y'all can dig. That woman was shocked. They found dead. They found the unalived, all kinds of black and Hispanic people being targeted, mostly drug addicts, transients. I'm not saying all Oklahomans are like this because I served with one that used to crack me up. So don't think and take that the wrong way. Y'all watch the news all the time, right? So Washington State, this is going to be my last quick rant. For all the crazy stuff that you see in the greater Seattle area, Washington is not that bad once you get out of the greater Seattle area. Now, this is my opinion, and I don't care who it make mad again until you get over to that Idaho border. Near Spokane and near Pullman at Washington State University. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Washington State Husky, and Washington State University, which is Wazoo, is our rivals. That's not why I'm saying that. You gotta be careful over that Idaho border because some of that Ku Klux is out here too. Okay, just saying. I would be scared. I've gone through that Idaho State border at night. Scary. Like, let's hurry up and get up out of here. Trying to get through. And I think go to Yellowstone in 2010. I'm like, When you grow up under it in Alabama, you know it when you see it. Let nobody fool you. The tech boom out here is big. And Seattle is an expensive city, but come on. Our minimum wage is pretty reasonable in accordance to everybody else. The tech boom. I'm surrounded by a lot of military. We got Coast Guard, Navy, and Army bases out here. And Air Force. I'm surrounded by quite a bit of them. That's one industry. Then you got the fishing and crabbing industry. The lakes here, like Lake Chelan, Chelan. Go look up Lake Chelan. They think it's the third deepest in the United States. They say that sucker goes into infinity. They don't even know how deep it is. A couple of years ago, the first time I passed Lake Chelan, I was in awe. They don't play with cleanliness in Washington. Don't get caught polluting no lakes and streams and water out here because somebody gonna turn you in. It's nice to have neighbors out here. Nobody here bothers me. They treat me with respect. There's a certain quietness to the state of Washington when you get out of. Now, I live in the greater Seattle area on what's called the Kitsap Peninsula, but the two places are like night and day. Now, it's getting more expensive over here, but I'm saying, okay? Some of this stuff is based on your own interpretation according to the article. You all can go back and read it. That stuff with Texas, people should know by now. Arkansas kind of don't surprise me either. Indiana seems a bit surprising to me because you just don't hear much about it. Indiana just seems like a very quiet place. So Minnesota, I don't understand. So y'all can explain that. But it's said that Jersey has per capita more millionaires than any other state. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong on that. Take this for a grain of salt, but take the truth out of it at the same time, because I'm not a liberal, but I learned quite a bit from this. All right, y'all, thanks for listening to my rant. Let me know which state you think's the best and which is the worst. It don't even have to be the ones on this list. Tell me what you think about the article. All right, thanks. Bye.